Welcome to Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt of the Marquardt Law Firm at marquardtlawfirm.com.
Is Christian nationalism a dangerous threat to the Constitution, or is it just a smear campaign against millions of Americans who simply want to live their faith in public life? That's what we're going to be talking about this segment, and we have a guest who's going to be calling into the show. His name is Greg Young. Greg, you're live on the air. Welcome to Talk Law Radio.
Hey, Todd. Great to be with you tonight. Thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome. I want to give some biographical information about Pastor Young. He oversees a ministry in India serving the lower caste, where they have put in over 80 freshwater wells, established 6 sewing schools for widows, 12 literacy schools, and monthly food provisions for widows and orphans, while sharing how God used him to save his daughter's life in a catastrophic car accident, which was caused by a man in a truck that pulled out in front of him and his daughter, and he threw himself from the passenger seat over to the driver's seat to become his daughter's airbag, breaking 38 bones. After 17 surgeries in over 5 days, he had died 4 times. Welcome to the show, Pastor Young.
It's great to be with you, Todd. Again, thanks so much for having me on, and I'm excited to talk about this topic with you. It's an important one. It's especially in light of what just recently happened with another attempted assassination of the President of the United States.
Yeah, that was at the White House dinner, right?
Yes, the White House Correspondents' Dinner in Washington, D.C., and fortunately they were able to stop that shooter, but it's not the first time that they've made an attempt to assassinate this president. This is the 3rd attempt to assassinate President Trump.
Yeah, so let's get some feedback from you on this topic specifically. How would you define Christian nationalism in your own words?
Christian nationalism, in my estimation, is the belief, number one, that the United States of America was founded as a Christian nation. I believe that it's stated in our Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and that they are endowed with inalienable rights by their Creator. It's also, I identified a belief in our Constitution with the First Amendment, which speaks to the freedom of religion, and it means that we want to see the biblical values that have made our country great reestablished in our nation and adhered to.
And so, do you think that we're establishing a Christian religion? Do you think that would be against the Constitution?
I think that for the federal government to establish a singular church is the exact opposite of what our founding fathers intended. Our founders, in fact, looked back to the Pilgrims and their migration here to America, to the New World, in order to be able to have religious freedom. And if you take note of the historical founding of each of the original 13 colonies, each one of them had their own distinct expression. They were all Christian, but they all had their own distinct expression of how that was to be, how they worshipped and what their tenets were.
Let me introduce you to somebody else, Pastor Young. Shannon Salmon is with me on the show too, and so I want to give her an opportunity to ask you a question about Christian nationalism. The historical facts, that was part of my outline. So thank you for anticipating that, Pastor Young. Shannon, do you have any follow-up questions?
Pastor Young, it's so nice to meet you in this format. Thank you for your service that you're doing. You sound like a fascinating person. I was a little confused when you said that we are a Christian nation, because it seemed like your follow-up was the opposite of that. So you did point out that our founders, that we believe that we are endowed with inalienable rights, but then you were talking about the First Amendment and our protections. So they're specifically saying that there shall be no establishment of a religion. What do you mean that we're a Christian nation?
Sure. So, first of all, when our founders introduced the Constitution, we need to understand, and the legal precedent for that really was created by our first Supreme Court and by the first Chief Justice of our Supreme Court, John Jay, who specifically identifies that we were in fact created as a Christian nation. In fact, this is his quote: "Providence has given to our people the choice of their rulers, and it is the duty as well as the privilege and interest of our Christian nation to select and prefer Christians for their rulers."
So if he has the right to do that because our Constitution protects his right to have freedom of religion, him as a person living underneath our Constitution, how that doesn't make us a Christian nation is my point. I kind of feel like we're on the same page a little bit, but I'm just trying to flesh out why you're saying we're a Christian nation when all the history that you're pointing to is saying that we were not established as a Christian nation. We were established as a place where Christians are free to practice their religion as they choose. But the government will not be establishing a religion and forcing a religion on anyone. Hindus are free. Jewish people are free.
Well, let me ask another
let me,
question.
Well, let me interject to that, Todd, if I might. So when we began the process, what I said is that the federal government was restricted from creating a federal church, which is what we broke away from when we moved away from the Church of England.
Okay.
Yeah,
If
we
you
would
look
all.
at the constitutions, if you look at the constitutions, though, of the original 13 colonies, every single one of them in the state constitution actually had Christianity, a belief in God, and many of them specifically a relationship with Jesus Christ as a qualification in order to serve in those state governments.
Let me switch gears because I want to get to this point, Pastor Young. In Dearborn, Michigan, there are schools that will allow Muslim students to have a special meal. They fast during their religious season, and so the cafeteria sends them home with special food at the end of the day so that they can have something to eat since they skipped lunch. And so do you think that it's okay to accommodate other religions like that?
Well, there's a more significant question that I think needs to be addressed, specifically when it comes to the issue of Islam, and that is whether or not we identify Islam as a religion or as a political ideology. Islam identifies itself as a political ideology. In fact, in their schools, in their 7th grade curriculum, they say, we are not a religion. We are an ideology. And not only are we an ideology, but we are a dominant authoritarian ideology, which says that there can be no other belief system, and we see that not just in 1400 years of history, but we see that in the areas such as portions of Dearborn that you're talking about,
Right.
that have specifically stated that they exclude any other religious practice.
Well, let me ask about a different religion then. Let's say the Jewish students, can they have accommodations for their religious holidays? Or does that go against what the Christian nationalist agenda calls for?
No, in fact, one of the reasons that John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, in their quotes, when they speak about Christianity as the underlying foundation of our country, the purpose for that is so that these other beliefs and other belief systems would have the opportunity, and individuals could have the opportunity to believe what they want. Christianity, at its base, says that all men have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, and that God, a loving God, sent his son Jesus Christ to die for our sins and to pay the price that we cannot pay. It is a choice that is left to each individual to decide whether or not to accept God's offer of his son Jesus Christ. And subsequently, the only way that we really are going to see evil defeated is to see sin conquered, and sins conquered in our individual lives.
You're a great pastor.
And through him only.
You got your message out, but we got to take a break. I'll talk to you later.
Okay. You bet. Bye-bye.
This has been Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt, brought to you by the Marquardt Law Firm. You can learn more at marquardtlawfirm.com. And be sure to listen to the full Talk Law Radio show Saturday mornings at 11 on 9:30 a.m. The Answer.
Most families don't realize they have hidden legal blind spots until it's too late. Wills, trusts, Medicaid planning, even protecting a business. These are the kinds of issues attorney Todd Marquardt helps uncover before they become problems. Todd is the host of Talk Law Radio, where each week he guides listeners through the legal challenges families, veterans, and business owners face, while showing them the practical steps to protect what matters most. Catch Talk Law Radio, Saturdays at 11 a.m. on 9:30 a.m. The Answer, 6:30 a.m. The Word, and now in Houston on AM 1070 and 103.3 FM The Answer, or anytime on YouTube. Planning isn't just about documents. It's about peace of mind, security for loved ones, and building a legacy that lasts. Don't wait for a crisis. Do it before you die.